So last week I discussed properties of soul, which was a sequel to the first lecture on 4 levels of existence. So today is the third and final in the series that I had planned, and the topic is an introduction to yoga. So a brief recap of what we discussed. In the first lecture we talked about 4 levels of existence like body, mind, intelligence and soul. We also discussed how mind is superior to body, intelligence is superior to mind and soul is superior to intelligence. And last week in the second lecture we also discussed about timeless Vedic knowledge, and we noted that it's more than 7,000 years older. I write in this planet because knowledge is information and it has no age in that sense. It's put into written form around 3000 BC. That means more than 5,000 years from now. And last week I also gave some links between modern scientific facts and some details that are outlined in the Vedic texts, which are pretty surprising, assuming that no such technology was available on that day. So either you assume that they were technologically more advanced, or you assume they had some other means of gaining knowledge, which is not through technology but by some other means. And I also want to emphasize that this Vedic knowledge is beyond any so-called religion, because if you observe, the oldest known religion on earth is Judaism, which is roughly 3000 years old, which is younger than all of the above things. Then I have Christianity, which is 2000 years old, almost 2013 to be precise. Right? Then Islam is 1500 years old, roughly. And Hinduism, I put a question mark because I doubt whether it is at all any religion. The word Hinduism actually does not exist in any of the Vedic texts. So some people misunderstand that the Vedic philosophy is Hindu philosophy. And roughly around 800 AD, when the foreigners began to invade India, that time they wanted to refer to the people residing on the other side of the river Sindhu as Hindu. And it was not until 18th and 19th century when the Hindus, the so-called Hindus, started referring themselves as Hindus to differentiate themselves from Christians and Muslims. So in that way, Hinduism is the youngest of all religions, you can say. And surprisingly, there are many common facts between Judaism, Christianity, Islam and Hinduism, and all those common facts come from the Vedic philosophy. And the last thing we discussed in the last lecture was the 3 main properties of the soul. We discussed many properties of the soul, but out of those properties, these 3 were of prime importance. The first one was Sat, that means eternality, the soul is eternal. The second was Chit, that means consciousness, that means the soul is conscious, it is the symptom of consciousness in the living body. And it's Ananda, that means bliss, that means the soul is by nature always happy. And that's the reason why all of us seek happiness in this world. Because ultimately our identity is we are soul, and because the nature of the soul is to become happy, that is reflected through our thoughts and actions in our life. So whether we go for party, or eat pizza or any other food, or do a hobby, for example gardening, or go for a vacation, it's all aimed at finding pleasure and happiness. Okay? But there are many sources of unhappiness in our pursuit. So for example, education. So students are always bothered about how to complete the degree. Then job. After you complete the degree, how to get a good job. And after you get the job, how to survive in the job. How to get promotion in that job. And then family. So, different members of the family, they act in a different way, and that creates a lot of problems. So how to handle them? Then after you have the job, after you retire, what you should do to remain happy. Then there are accidents throughout your life, maybe physical or mental, or any kinds of accidents. There are diseases. And finally death, the biggest anxiety that many of us are afraid of. And all these different sources of happiness can be classified into three main categories. So the first source of unhappiness. So the first source of unhappiness is natural calamities, of which we have no control. So there may be a tsunami or an earthquake, and then you have no control over it. The second source of unhappiness is due to other living entities. So there may be a stealing, a robbery, a murder, or an assault, anything. And the third source of unhappiness is within you, within your own body and mind. So your body may go through a lot of diseases, your mind may go through a lot of tensions and stress, and that cause unhappiness to you. Okay? So the process of yoga aims at solving these problems. Now solving can be of two types. First, face these problems and win over them. That can be one approach to the solution. And the second approach would be eradicate the root of these problems forever. And we'll talk about both. So what is yoga? This begins the main part of our lecture today. So any idea? What is yoga? Any opinion?
Reduce weight.
Reduce weight. Yeah. That's a nice side effect of yoga.
Controlling body and mind.
Yes, that's one of the targets of yoga. Okay, so when the word yoga comes, most of us think about these activities. And of course, you can include some other sports as well. The real meaning of yoga, if we want to understand, we have to analyze the word itself. So it comes from the Sanskrit word yuj, which is a verb root in Sanskrit. And the word yuj as a verb root means to link or to connect. Now whenever we talk about linking or connecting, that means there are two entities we are talking about, and we need to establish a connection between them. So what are those entities? Now in the last two classes, I had discussed one entity, that is soul, and in this class I will touch upon on the second entity, which I call super soul or God. And the purpose of yoga, any kind of yoga, is to use or link these two entities. And there are many atheists also who practice yoga, and they interpret this linking as the soul is kind of individual consciousness or individual energy within your body, and the super soul or God, they represent as the universal consciousness or universal energy that is out there in the universe. So it's a bridge between your inside and outside. That's how they represent. But let us have a closer look. So first I want to say that when you see a nicely prepared clock, we assume in our mind that there is some designer of that clock. It's not just by chance. But when you see, for example, DNA, is it righteous to believe that it also came by chance? Because there is also a very intricate mechanical structure of two double helix strands of the, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, those nitrogen bases, and the bonds between them. And also if you look around, you will see there are a lot of organization. And you can ask yourself, can organization be possible without an organizer? Also there are many physical and chemical laws that govern the universe. And just as the traffic laws, they are deployed or implemented by some lawmaker. So we can ask ourselves, the laws of the universe, can they exist without a lawmaker? So all these questions you can ask yourself and think about. this most beautiful system of the sun, planets and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. Now there is a nice story about Isaac Newton. He had made a solar model, okay, a mechanical solar model, and one of his atheist friends visited him once. So when the friend asked, "Oh, it's a very nice model of the solar system. So how did you get it?" So Newton said, "It just fell from the sky, some particles, and then they arranged themselves in this order." Then the friend said, "It's not possible. I mean, maybe someone gifted you or you made it yourself. Explain me." So then Newton said, "If you believe that this small model cannot be created by random event or by chance, how can the big solar system can exist there by chance?" So that was just one story. And I find this example little interesting. Probably all of you know about is Blaise Pascal for his Pascal's law. So he used to argue the existence of God in the following game theoretic matrix form. So you have two possibilities on the column. One possibility is God exists, that is denoted by the predicate G, and the second possibility is God does not exist, that is denoted by the predicate not G, right? And then you have two choices, either to believe in God, that's a predicate B, and either not to believe in God, so that's not B. Now there is a payoff matrix, so if God exists and you believe in God, then boom, of course your gain is infinity because you believe what is there, what is true, and you follow the process to connect with God, and because God is all powerful, you are all powerful, right? So it's plus infinity. And if God does not exist, if you still believe in God, then the loss is not minus infinity because, materially there is no loss. And because God does not exist and you believe, so there is no question of spiritual loss also. So he attributes a value of -1. And when you disbelieve, then of course if God exists and you disbelieve, of course it's minus infinity, right? Because you deny the truth. And then if God does not exist, you do not believe, so it's symmetric in this. So it's like +1, yes. Does not exist and your belief is true, so it's fine. So now, what Pascal showed, and it's easy to show, that for any non-trivial probability distribution of these two events, so if it happens with P and it happens with 1 minus P, for any P greater than 0, the expected reward for believing in God dominates over the expected reward for not believing in God, independent of whether God exists in reality or does not exist. So Pascal said the best decision, okay, is to believe in God. And later, some other guys told that if this is plus infinity and these three are any finite values, f1, f2 and f3, the same holds.
Actually,
the minus infinity you don't need actually. You can have any finite, say f1, f2 and f3 and still the result holds.
But that should be plus infinity.
Yeah, plus infinity or, the larger, a very large value.
So the table is made of...
So it's not a proof, it was an argument. Of course it's not a proof. It was an argument by Pascal. Okay. Then here is Lord Kelvin. The absolute zero temperature is named after him, Kelvin scale. So if you think strongly enough, you will be forced by science to believe in God. And this is a famous quote from Einstein, who said, "Subtler is the Lord." And many of you know the famous Indian mathematician Srinivas Ramanujan. He said, "An equation for me has no meaning unless it represents a thought of God." So I believe in every equation he could find some influence of God or some attribute of God. And then these are more recent, by two Nobel laureate physicists, Heisenberg and Paul Dirac. So Heisenberg is famous for his uncertainty principle in quantum mechanics. He said there is a higher power not influenced by our wishes, which finally decides and judges. And Paul Dirac said God is a mathematician of very high order, and he used very advanced mathematics in constructing the universe. And this is the last slide in this series of quotes from the scientists. What I find personally is that in the previous time, there were two kinds of scientists, right? Like one school who believed in God and they tried to give a lot of arguments, and there was another school who did not believe and they tried to give many arguments. But I mean, as I studied the history of science, it turns out that with more and more technological advancement, more scientists are moving to the group of the believers. So, for example, you can look it up in the internet that most of the modern the biologists believe, especially after the full understanding of the human genome and understanding of the functionality of how the DNA and RNA they are acting inside the human cells. The most of them believe in something which is called ID theory or intelligent design theory. They call that, okay, there is a creator of the universe and that creator has intelligence, that means it's a conscious creator, it's not something inanimate energy. But they don't know who that creator is or how to connect to that creator. So they keep it at an abstract level and they say there must be an intelligent designer behind it. And this is a very recent book, you can look it up. I happened to read it. It's an interview with two Nobel laureate physicists. They work in laser. And so the discussion is about whether God is impersonal or personal. And they argued that, okay, God must be a person with intelligence and attributes. So, we said that yoga means connecting to God. But the question is why? Well, I have partially answered it. So the first is long-term benefit. So last week I also talked about it. Long-term benefit is a soul's liberation from the cycle of birth and death, assuming the reincarnation theory to be true. And permanent happiness till eternity. We discussed it at breadth, but if you have more questions, we can take it up later. And if you are not attracted by the long-term benefits, then here is some short-term benefit. So we discussed about the relationship between soul, intelligence, mind and body, and we gave analogy that in order to function effectively or function efficiently in this world, you need your soul to control the intelligence, control the mind, and mind control the body. But in reality, in most of the cases, it's the other way around. So the body pulls the mind, and the mind pulls the intelligence, so everything is jeopardized. So one benefit of yoga is fixing the soul, intelligence, mind, body interface so that you can function properly in this world. The other short-term benefit is permanent happiness in this very life. So, means face all problems. It's not that you are devoid of problems. Of course, there will be problems from the three sources that I had discussed as a cool view. So having said that, let me talk about the different forms of yoga that is there in the Vedic philosophy. So the first form is called Jnana Yoga, which means Jnana means knowledge, so connecting to God through knowledge. The second one has many different names in different Vedic literature. In somewhere it is called Ashtanga Yoga, Vinyasa Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Raj Yoga, Abhyasa Yoga. Ultimately, all of these means connecting to God through exercise. The third one is Karma Yoga, connecting to God through action. And the fourth one is Bhakti Yoga, connecting to God through love. So, the thing is that each of these yoga has very intricate details, and if I want to talk in detail about them, then probably I will need one semester for each of these yogas. So I'll try to be very brief here and spend only a couple of slides on each of them. Try to just highlight the gist of the message. So before I proceed, 4 basic principles of any kind of yoga, be it Jnana, Ashtanga, Karma or Bhakti, or any other kind of yoga, is a sattvic diet, which is a subset of vegetarianism. Now, this is not to say whether vegetarianism or non-vegetarianism should be there or whether something is right or wrong. I am just saying that it's the diet recommended by the process of yoga. Okay, and as a reference, you can look it up. This is a very recent book by Sharon Gannon. It was released in 2008. It's available in Amazon. So the detailed theory is there why such a diet is needed. Then no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit or illegal sex. So these are the 4 basic principles of any kind of yoga. And I mean, you can see that. I mean, of course, the first one will be